Hello, my name is Chloe Folan, and today this video actually has a few points that I would like to highlight. As you can see from the title, the main point is just to summarize stages of building the Rainbow Bridge, meaning how the Antahkarana Bridge is built from a perspective of Antahkarana thread weaving mainly. But this video today also I'll be underlying the power of words. That's the other thrust with this video, because there's a few things that I do actually want to explain, but I want to explain it in more bite-sized pieces and in little stages, if you will, because then it will all make more sense. Like that, I don't like to bombard people with too much information at once. There's a few points that I'd like to make, a few things that will come out of this video with future videos. This will have a deep link to future videos I will be releasing, but those that are very close to what I'm about to discuss will fully understand where I'm going with this and why I'm gently moving into this and discussing a few different things simultaneously. So, as the title suggests, this is just a summary video on stages of building the Rainbow Bridge. If you go onto my YouTube channel, you'll see there's already a playlist created on my YouTube channel for free access, public access, with 5 main videos that go into huge detail. And those videos accompany a free 50-page PDF with auric plates in them, auric plates of real living students of the Rainbow Bridge techniques in particular. So that's what that video series was for. It was to describe stages of building the Rainbow Bridge from a perspective of Antahkarana thread weaving, along with reading the PDF document that I handed out. So the reason for this video is, since that video was released with that PDF and those case studies, in the Rainbow Bridge and Ray Path technique communities, there has been movement forward. So I just want to highlight that I have a group of international people, international students of Rainbow Bridge and Ray Path, that have progressed more fully into stage 8. I've documented stage 8 in men and women internationally, so I've got a good grasp on the causation and occurrences of stage 8 based on proper real case studies of real people. So I want to give a bit more information over stage 8. I give a little bit in the other Antahkarana series, but I want to give a little bit more now that I can. I also have a smaller group that have progressed into stage 9 and have reached a point where they've now completed stage 9, moving into stage 10. So I just wanted to give some updates. But while I'm talking about this, I would also like to simultaneously bring up another issue that in particular did come to a head. Well, it's been progressive. This cropped up, good grief, was it 7 years ago now? But then cropped up again mid-December last year. In other words, with some progressive things that have happened that I've been watching to see how to respond to properly, it's basically gotten to a point where I now realize I do need to be more clear over certain things for a good reason. So, number one, a lot of people would realize that I'm deliberately using the phrase stages of building the Rainbow Bridge. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And it's cataloging a huge amount of detail, meaning What happens with the heart-centered petals? What happens to the chakras? What happens to the aura layers? What happens to the higher bodies, your divine blueprint, as spirit is anchored into matter? But my language is deliberate. Stages. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, now getting into all the way up to stage 10. Two people who have been fortunate enough, and there's a very wide community of these people, two people who've had the very good fortune of being introduced to the Bailey books before other material and being fortunate enough to get a good teacher in the Bailey books. A lot of people from that perspective would straight away read my material and hear me and straight away understand why I'm saying stages and understanding what I'm cataloging. So another issue in terms of, so how do I put this? Let's start here, shall we? To me, the general definition of initiation means a qualifying stage in evolution. So, and I said it once or twice in one or two videos, but made sure I was understood. You could call my stages stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. You could call them Antahkarana initiations. You could call them initiation stages in building the Antahkarana and the light body. But the reason why I've very deliberately steered away from that word is because, as most people are aware, the Rainbow Bridge techniques are deeply, deeply linked to the Bailey books, meaning the late Josephina Norman Stevens stated over and over and over again that the Bailey books are their textbooks and recommended reading along with the Rainbow Bridge techniques, and stated quite clearly a lot of the inspirations for the Rainbow Bridge techniques came from the Bailey books. So just to kind of be a bit clear about where I'm going with this, two people of that high caliber level of understanding, two people that have been exposed to the Bailey books and proper teachings around the Bailey books. The word initiation does not have a general flippant meaning. So, because I am fully aware of the community of people I'm very privileged to read for, and the types of people that would come to me for reading. Now, I give readings to anybody, no matter what your pathway, no matter what understandings you think you may or may not have. So my readings are suitable for anybody, and anyone may avail of an esoteric aura reading. It's called a Rainbow Bridge reading for students that are doing the Rainbow Bridge technique, same for Ray Path. But what I'm trying to very gently explain is that because of the very wide community, and in part the very deep, proper esoteric community that I read for, initiation does not have a general meaning. So for quite a few years now, I think at least 7, 8 years now, I have steered clear of the general use of that word. So to be clear, number one, yes, I am fully aware. In a general sense, initiation means a qualifying stage in evolution. You could call a petal opening initiation. You could call, like I just said, Antahkarana thread weaving and Antahkarana initiation. But I'll gently come back to the point I'm trying to make. For the wider community that I do read for, and for some of the people I do read for, that's not what initiation means. And I'm acutely, consciously aware of that and very respectful of that, to the point I nearly call it the I word. I've got clients, students, and peers that I joke with over the I word. So to be clear, two people who've been fortunate enough to get proper Bailey teachings and exposed to proper, balanced, deeper Bailey teachings, the word initiation means they're going to think or believe that the minute you start saying that you're talking about the proper, traditional, deep initiations, meaning birth, baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion, renunciation. So I very gently try to make sure to not get the waters muddied, because words and language matter. Now, the other point I would really like to highlight here, and I want to take clairvoyance out of it for a minute. Let's just have a gentle talk about having any type of progression towards a proper transfiguration initiation. Unfortunately, there's a lot of very misappropriated and badly sideways watered down information about the transfiguration initiation. It is such a monumental initiation to have in a traditional sense that it's not common. It doesn't mean it can't be reached, but it takes deeper, harder work than most people realize when they first start to come into understandings, at least proper, deep, esoteric ones, over building the light body. So taking clairvoyance out of it for a minute, part of the, just part, one tiny part of a proper deep transfiguration is having full mental awareness over words and understanding the power of words. Now, that does not mean toxic positivity. That doesn't mean using your mental faculties to pretend an issue isn't there. A mark, now like that, I've met people who I would say are around a first birth, baptism, initiation, or coming to it, who have very good discernment skills. So look, you can't just judge based on one thing, but what I would like to highlight with this video is what I'm trying to get across. If you take clairvoyance out of it for a minute, like I'm always trying to tell people, please don't feel that because you can't or don't see to the level of detail that I would be able to in terms of heart center petal opening, the chakras, being able to see all of that phenomena. I can see all of that phenomena in people and more, as clearly as you can see my fingers. But it demonstrates different ways where somebody is on the pathway. And coming back to initiation, human and the solar, it is one of the conditions of proper, deep initiation. And I gently keep trying to explain that those initiations are rare. They are. They're rare. So just to better explain what I'm trying to get at in initiation, human and the solar, coming to the chapter that discusses, it's called rules conditions. Conditions would be a far better word. Condition 7, I'm on page 198 of Initiation Human and the Solar. You can read this book online for free through Lucius Trust. Condition 7. Let the disciple turn his attention to the enunciating of those sounds which echo in the halls where walks the master. Let him not sound the lesser notes which awaken vibration within the halls of Maya. The disciple who seeks to enter within the portals of initiation, meaning the proper deep initiations, cannot do so until he has learned the power of speech and the power of silence. This has a deeper and a wider significance than perhaps is apparent, for it holds, if rightly interpreted, the key to manifestation, the clue to great cycles, and the revelation of the purpose underlying, no, I can't pronounce this word, people know I can't, pralaya, that's my best shot at it. Until a man comprehends the significance of the spoken word, man or woman, until a man or woman comprehends the significance of the spoken word, and until he utilizes the silence of the high places for the bringing about of desired effects on one plane or another, he cannot be admitted into those realms wherein every sound and every word spoken produces powerful results in matter of some kind, being energized by two predominant factors. A powerful will, scientifically applied. B, right motive, purified in the fires. So what I'm trying to get at here is, when you realize a particular word holds power and deep, deep significance for a wider community of people, and that's not respected, right there, that would tell you you are dealing with someone nowhere near the third transfiguration initiation. Nowhere near. Now, on the flip side of this, in the Bailey books, in Telepathy and the Etheric Vehicle, there's a beautiful quote, I can't remember what page, where it states quite clearly, it's in the word forms he is apt to go astray. So as we are evolving, and as we are learning, and as we are growing, in particular, the words we use, there will be miscommunications of some kind. Sometimes it's on behalf of the person you're speaking to. They've taken you up wrong. Maybe it's both. Maybe your reference points are different and it's both of you getting lost in translation, or the other way around. I mean, my goodness, we've all had different experiences of miscommunication, whether it's been us, someone else, or something in between, something we've seen. So I'll say it again. It's in the word forms he is apt to go astray. It's going to happen. But herein lies how you can gauge the maturity of someone who claims to be spiritual or in any way, shape, or form enlightened. When someone realizes there is a word or a phrase or a gesture, but we're going to talk about words right now, that deeply, deeply means something to a very wide community of people, if that person then decides, out of wounded pride and deeply immature behavior, to keep using that word how they wish, right there. Deeply immature person on a very deep, steep learning curve. So that's why I'm trying to explain that I use very deliberate language in all of the material I release. A lot of thought, a lot of conscious thought goes into all of the workshops that I've released and all of the documents I've released and everything in between, to always really sit down and understand how the information I'm releasing will be received. And there are times in life when, yes, it is not you that's caused the misinterpretation. So there are times when you do stand your ground, but I'll say it again. When you realize a word or a phrase deeply means something to a wider community, you should then have the maturity to acknowledge that reference point, and for that particular community, not use a particular word out of context, out of respect for that particular community. I believe most people are hearing what I'm saying. There are times where sometimes no, but you're aware of certain things. Sometimes yes, you do change and reorientate. So I deliberately avoid the word initiation when I'm talking about Antahkarana stages of building the rainbow bridge, for this very reason that I'm discussing. Within the wider community that I have the deep privilege of reading for, the I word, the initiation word, that's what that means. Birth, baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion. So, and I'll say it again, those initiations are rare, and look, I will come back to this. But for the moment, I'm now going to put that issue aside. I believed I've gently talked about it clearly enough to the best of my abilities that most people watching this would understand what I'm trying to say. So for the moment, I'm going to put that to the side, the initiation I word, and come back to talking about Antahkarana thread evolution in stages of building the rainbow bridge in the light body. And then I will be creating future videos where I go back to talking about the proper traditional initiations. And then I will eventually, once all that's cleared up more clearly, at least from my perspective, then talk about the two, because that's interesting. But it's at a stage where it's very open to interpretation. But I don't want it being open to being misinterpreted because I haven't been clear about something. So while everyone is free to filter my publicly released Antahkarana thread work the way they wish to, I'm just trying to be clear over me not being understood. Whatever else someone wants to believe about my Antahkarana thread work and what I'm describing about building the light body, that's someone's individual personal business, but not because of something I haven't clearly explained. So how I would like to come to talking about Antahkarana thread weaving and the very interesting breakthroughs around stage 8, 9, and 10, because it's very interesting. And they're breakthroughs that have only happened over the last 3 years. So I found it interesting that while there was such stressful global events going on, at home, I'm sitting down, amazed, cataloging full stage 8s and more of them happening. Then going into stage 9, which I was unsure if it was possible at this point in time. And then moving into stage 10. So you've got all of the multi-level chaos kicking off globally and very stressfully. And on the flip side, I'm cataloguing these amazing breakthroughs happening within the Rainbow Bridge and Ray Path communities. So without further ado, this will be up on the blog section of my website and will be updated elsewhere on my website as well. I like that my web manager is in the middle of doing that for me. But just to bring up the document that will be shared within the next few days. Apologies, I'm just looking for my screen share. So this document will be publicly available. You can email me for it if you wish, but it will be on the blog section of my website. It is going to be updated elsewhere on my website. And here we go, stages of building the Rainbow Bridge. So stage 1, we're going to start at the beginning, which will bring me into the deeper stages that I want to discuss a little more of. So stage 1 of building the Antahkarana, stage 1 of building the Rainbow Bridge from a point of view of Antahkarana thread weaving. So this happens for everyone. So this starts at physical birth and usually takes until someone's around 16 or late teens, early 20s. That can slightly vary, but usually between 16 to age late teens, early 20s to consummate stage 1. So obviously at this stage, there wouldn't be any deep enforcement technique being used. People who know me well know I am not an advocate for children using deep enforcement techniques. I'm a believer in children being given gentle meditation techniques, gentle visualization techniques, but I do not believe that children should be given deep karmic clearing techniques. I don't believe that should be given to anybody until they are minimum 18 or 21 years of age. And like that, if you think I'm strict, in other avenues of proper deep karmic clearing work, I believe this would more relate to the East. In some parts of the East, in their traditions around proper deep karmic clearing work, you needed to be 35. And it wasn't just your age. There were other factors as well. It wouldn't just be a case of, well, I'm 35. Can I have a karmic clearing technique? So look, anyway, coming back to stage 1. So organically, from birth. So as a baby is being born, the highest self, and to me, it always looks like a whitish globe, sometimes tinged with gold, will hover over the mother giving birth, you know, in the final stages of giving birth. And as I've always said, it doesn't matter whether it's a natural birth or a C-section. As soon as the baby comes out, however that happens, that orb will float over the baby's head. And as soon as that baby takes the first breath, the soul to head thread anchors down. And then over the next 2 to 4 months, it'll usually be the yellow ray that you'll see pouring down from what then starts to become the soul star chakra. And as that happens over 2-3 months, the baby stages of the central channel start to form. The little chakras start to form a little bit more. In other words, things start to energetically form a bit more as the higher and lower self, if you will, start to fuse more through physical birth life. And as that occurs, so from birth then moving into teens and early adulthood, what then organically happens at the same time, at different intervals, light impulses come down from the soul to head thread, and that then gently triggers the opening, one at a time, of the 3 physical plane petals in the heart chakra. So one at a time, those 3 physical plane petals start to open one by one with those little impulses. So usually by the time someone is between 16 to 21 years of age or thereabouts, usually someone's completed stage 1. Then stage 2 can somewhat start to happen organically. So overlapping that, once stage 1 has finished, and there's always a transition period then where that settles. But at some point in that age bracket, the soul to heart thread will then come down and anchor into the heart, and impulses of light start coming down, and that then starts to open the 3 petals in the second ring in the heart chakra, the astral plane ring, as I call it. 3 petals relating to emotional plane development. So as that impulse is down, those petals start to open, but this is where people get stuck, so to speak. This is where people start to have difficulties, because what I've witnessed in people over and over and over again, if some type of proper deep karmic clearing technique is not employed, and someone just leaves themselves as they are, so to speak, doesn't do any deliberate deep karmic clearing work, by the time they're more a mature adult, or maturing into their adult years, yes, they'll have the soul to head thread and 3 petals, but maybe just the soul to heart thread and 1 or 2 petals. So in other words, and it's said here in this document, by the time someone's a mature adult, they'll have the soul to head thread, 3 physical plane petals open, but then a little bit of the soul to heart thread and 3 astral, 1 to 2 astral plane petals open. So in other words, only around maybe 4 petals open, or maybe coming into 5 petals open in the heart chakra. And if no proper deep karmic clearing work is done, that is the condition someone stays in. That's the point it organically will stop at. And people will still have physical experiences, emotional experiences, mental experiences. Life doesn't stop. But the deeper mechanics of what's going on is life is mainly just experienced and continues to be experienced from that point in development. So in other words, not fully completed stage 2. So that's your main point of reference for what's happening in your inner world, outer world, and everything in between, which is absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Life will always give you enough to deal with, my goodness. So please remember, I'm talking about this in terms of light body building and causation of light body building. So it's only if someone's doing a proper, deep karmic clearing technique, a proper one, a properly tested one of some sort, that someone then gets the last petal or 2 open on the astral plane and gets fully built to their soul star chakra. So when stage 2 is completed, that basically shows that you've integrated your divine blueprint to your divine blueprint's feet. So let me describe it like this for a minute. Building to your soul star is maybe consummating 20 to 30% of your divine blueprint. Stage 3 of building the rainbow bridge, building to your triad, is getting more to a point of being 50% integrated with your divine blueprint, meaning there's 50% fusion between matter and soul. Coming to stage 4 of building the rainbow bridge, building to your monad. Building to your monad, basically, or to a point there when, my goodness, that would be maybe around 70% built your light body, or maybe a little bit more. Stage 5, building to your ray path chakra. That's where you're getting more into 80 and 90, or around 80% of building the light body. Stage 6, grounding your ray path chakra symbol. It's at stage 6 that you have fully anchored and integrated matter, soul, and monad. So it's at that point that you've fully built the Antahkarana, that you've fully built to and integrated the higher chakras. And at that point, then it becomes about a refinement process, because the chakras continue to transform. The aura layers continue to blend and dissolve, if you will. Your soul star continues to develop and form, as well as other phenomena. But my main point is, it's when you come to stage 6 that it no longer becomes about integrating something up there. It becomes about then grounding. You've grounded your divine blueprint, and you're now continuing to refine your divine blueprint and how that echoes and has causation, not only internally but externally as well, within the 3 form worlds within and around you. It becomes about a refinement process. So this is what I like to highlight for people. If you're involved in a technique that constantly keeps telling you, now enlightenment is up there, it's another chakra. Now enlightenment is up there, it's another chakra. You have been dragged sideways. Badly sideways. Enlightenment is in here. It's in what you perceive. It's in your precipitated actions. It's in you becoming more consciously aware of yourself and the world around you, becoming more conscious of your choices, your words, and your actions. It's here. It's here. So I would like to stress that again. When you reach stage 6 of building the rainbow bridge, that is you having fully integrated, fully fused soul and monad. And I'll explain that more when I come to that. I'm going to go back over the stages, coming back to stage 3. But at that point, it becomes about me giving you guidance around continuing to refine what you've anchored, refine what's happening, to continue to anchor the light body that you've integrated, and continuing to anchor that into your perceptions, your words, your actions, your choices, the world around you. Let me put it this way. I'll say it gently one more time. If you're involved in a technique where there's constantly this never-ending stream of so-called higher chakras that you've got to anchor, it is bizarre, off the wall, and deeply sideways. Once you've integrated your divine blueprint, it becomes about you then integrating that experience and enlightenment being anchored and coming consciously from within. So this is what I mean, where, and I believe most people, even people that maybe have just happened across this video, I believe most people are hearing what I'm saying. Any decent technique that claims to integrate your light body properly, for reasons I've just explained, should have a point where that is consummated and focus is then internal, within and around you. So coming back to stage 3. So building to triad, we're coming back to building to triad. Personality thread starts to weave. So this is only with proper karmic clearing enforcement techniques. The personality service thread weaves up from the duodenum point of the solar plexus, up through the central channel, up through the soul star, and builds to the abstract mind point in the higher triad chakra above the soul star, and the 3 heart center petals in the 3rd ring, in the mental plane ring in the heart chakra, then open one by one as well. Thread weaves first, heart center petals after. Stage 4 of building the rainbow bridge, once stage 3 has been fully consummated. Stage 4, the personality love thread starts to weave, or the second portion of the life thread of the Antahkarana, from heart up through the soul star, up through the sun of mind point, up to the monadic chakra above the triad. That thread then comes back down the same way, back down through the heart, and anchors into the earth star. That then triggers the 4th ring of petals in the heart chakra. The 3 spiritual plane petals, those petals then open one by one and are the causation of certain life events being lived through. So once the personality love thread is fully woven and the 4th ring of petals is fully open, the 3 spiritual plane petals, that marks being fully built to your monadic chakra, having built the Antahkarana to your monad. And that basically marks being infused, being matter and spirit infused to your divine blueprint's head, your higher self's head. So high level of matter and soul fusion, starting into monadic fusion as well. Stage 5, this is where things get really interesting and it really picks up. Stage 5, the knowledge thread weaves up from the trigeminal nerve in the brain, up through the central channel, up through the soul star, up to the lower mind point in the triad, up to the will thread point in monad, and continues up to the ray path chakra. That thread, as that thread starts to weave, a very interesting phenomena happens where your triad and monad chakras start to overlap and integrate. And as that happens, it triggers an opening of the 5th ring of heart chakra petals. So 5th ring of heart chakra petals. What that 5th ring is its diverged monadic force. As those final 4 petals open, what that is, as your triad and monad start to overlap and integrate, that energy starts to anchor into the heart, which becomes those final 4 petals. So those final 4 petals are diverged monadic force. So at the end of stage 5, once stage 5 of building the rainbow bridge is completed, so at stage 5, you've fully built the Antahkarana and you've fully built to all levels of the divine blueprint of your highest chakras at that point. And at the end of stage 5, you will have a 5-pointed star above the head, 5-rayed soul star. There'll be no triad and monad above your head. That will be anchored into the heart in those final 4 petals, just leaving your Frey path chakra above. So a very clear built Antahkarana all the way up to your Ray path chakra with no triad and monad in between. Really high level of monadic and soul infusion. So coming to then stage 6. Stage 6 is where the second portion of the service thread starts to weave, the adaptability portion of the green service thread. That thread pulleys down the ray path symbol down over the outer auric field. And at the same time, of course, the chakras punch out silver one by one. And at this point as well, whether it's Rainbow Bridge or Ray Path, there are no atypical internal patterns left at all. It becomes about the continued transformation of the chakras going secondary. The chakras start to go secondary coming back to stage 4. So at the end of stage 4, the base, sacral, and solar plexus are secondary, but the other chakras are not. They're still going secondary. So at stage 6, this is when all of the chakras one by one get gone back through, so to speak, and all of them start to more deeply transform into secondary chakras, although the process continues. It's a continuing process with how the chakras transform. So at this point, there are no other chakras to ground. It now becomes about stage 6, grounding your Frey path chakra, becomes about living authentically. And the paradox is you could not, but you could only live authentically. Stage 6 of building the rainbow bridge, your yeses become clear, your nos become clear. By default, you could not but live authentically, even if you're still sensing that out for yourself. So, of course, I still encourage use of the rainbow bridge, and at that point it would be the monadic thread techniques to continue to help with the refinement process. You've grounded your higher self, you've grounded spirit into matter, and you are now seeing through yourself and understanding your own internal perceptions at this point of development. It's a phenomenal point of development to encourage someone to get to, but it does take commitment. This would usually take someone maybe about 6 to 7 years of Rainbow Bridge or Ray Path work to get near stage 6. Sometimes it might be a little bit quicker. It depends on where someone was with building the Antahkarana before starting Rainbow Bridge or Ray Path. But just giving a general realistic guideline, it does take around the 5 to 6 years, sometimes 7 mark, and it also depends on how much time commitment someone has to their clearing techniques. But I'll say it again, I'm talking about an evolution enforcement technique. So when you're using a proper technique for enforcing evolution, it's not a rat race. So no one should be discouraged by the timelines I'm giving. That's pretty good going. Can we please remember what I said earlier, where if no proper enforcement technique is employed or used, from someone's mature adult years, right up until their twilight years, if they're lucky enough to live into old age, without a proper enforcement technique of any kind, someone remains with maybe only about 4 to 5 petals open in the heart chakra. So not fully completed stage 2 if someone doesn't subject themselves to a proper enforcement technique of some kind, or at least a little bit of a 1, even if they don't keep up with it. So look, everybody's different. I won't get into that in this video. Coming back to stage 6. So I believe I've covered that with stage 6, this chakra's transforming, and the rest of the chakras that weren't secondary starting to go more secondary. Stage 7, the chakras now start to go a fiery golden orange color. The wisdom monadic thread, that portion, the love wisdom thread of the Antahkarana, the wisdom portion, the blue portion of that thread starts to mature more with this stage of development as well. All of the chakras go a beautiful fiery orangey golden color, one by one, going through stage 7. And the keynote of stage 7 is conscious choice. More consciously choosing at this point of development. And what I find fascinating with people that remain with the techniques long enough to get to stage 7 is if you find yourself going through stage 7, you'll realize the choices you're making, you are choosing. Meaning, now, don't get me wrong, and I say this quite clearly in the document, there will always be circumstances out of your control. Always. There will always be curveballs for a variety of reasons. But generally speaking, the life events you live through as part of stage 7 are about making conscious choice where you're choosing, where maybe the two choices, it's 50-50. In other words, not forced to choose. You might do this, you might not. You may do this, you may not. But you learning to apply very conscious choice. And because of those experiences, the keynote of stage 7 is esoteric freedom. So by the time someone's completed stage 7, the causation of stage 7, getting you to more consciously choose, helps you to, with every single case study I've done on people going through stage 7, at the end of it, everything they have or have not chosen has led them to deeper freedom. But of course, the word freedom can get misunderstood here. At the end of stage 7, you will find that all of the choices you made and did not make have led you to deeper freedom. Deeper freedom with the choices you've made, meaning you haven't made choices that have impeded freedom. You've made choices that have allowed for deeper freedom. Stage 8, so coming to where there's been more breakthroughs. I've been cataloguing and witnessing more people going through stage 8. So stage 8, the chakras now start to form a black spiral, one by one, in each of the chakras. And with stage 8, now this is the stage where sometimes it is about a main curveball, meaning stage 8, the keynote of it is seal the door where evil dwells. So we'll have catalogued in people going through stage 8, they're going about their business, their personal lives, their service, all of that. And then all of a sudden, something will come to their attention over something maybe slightly unexpected, or tracing it back, you can see where it came from, cropping up, that you do need to deal with. But you'll find that whatever you end up having to deal with at stage 8, the resolution you find from that knotty curveball experience actually becomes a part of the way and a part of who you are and what you're about and what you end up teaching others in some way, shape, or form. So it is a stage where there is a challenge, and I'll say it again, slightly curveball, but then when you're realizing what's going on, not so curveball, And as you work through that challenge, it actually becomes a piece of then what you bring into your own service and what you do. On another note, what I find fascinating about the black spirals is those black spirals also relate to the next red ray circle system that is still only embryonic at this stage. It's still only a cosmic idea, if you will. It has not physically formed yet. So the more people that go through stage 8, it's at that point you're also on another level, helping to prompt very slowly more of the formation of the next red ray circle system, which we won't be experiencing for about another 4 to 5 billion years' time. And because of that, because this relates to the next system on another level, I find that people end up, I don't like the word channeling, but for want of a better word, people end up receiving impression, there we go, receiving impression for information more related to the next system, but of course there's overlaps. So new bits of information starting to come through and things of that nature in different fields of service, depending on your ray makeup and the ray path symbol you've grounded. But this is really where information starts to come through in cycles, more related to the next system. So where, I think you know what I'm trying to say. So stage 9. So this is where, this was the main thrust of this video, now talking about stage 9. So after 10 years of documenting case studies, I now have a small handful of people going through stage 9. The chakras go white and shine one by one. The white ray of unity, so the white ray is the 7 main rays of life combined. So the white ray of unity conditions this stage, meaning there are rays that condition each of these stages. But I'll say it again, I don't like to bombard people with information. I'll put that in a completely different video to discuss it because it's interesting. But of course, that will be going into the main book related to this information. So the chakras go white and shine one by one. The white ray of unity conditions this stage. It can be seen pouring down from the 5-rayed soul star and through the central channel, and the third portion of the consciousness thread anchors in the throat chakra. So just to come back on thread weaving, coming back to stage 5 of building the rainbow bridge, that's when the foundation 5 threads are anchored. And what happens in stage 6, stage 7, stage 8, and stage 9 matures and extends the threads. The threads are dual and triple. So this is where the main 5 threads from stage 5 onwards start to mature and extend and further blend. So the third portion of the consciousness thread anchors in the throat. Soul to head is the first portion of the consciousness thread. The knowledge thread that builds to your ray path chakra is the second portion. Then anchoring into the throat, that's the third portion of the consciousness thread. And here we go, stage 10, because I now have people moving into stage 10 of building the rainbow bridge. Stage 10, it's amazing because, and here we go, I say it. Where do I say it here? I'll find it again, but in the back when the non-updated version of this was released, Stages of Building the Rainbow Bridge, when it was released a few years ago, meaning this would have been going back once again, probably about 7-8 years ago. At that point, I only had a tiny group of people going through stage 8. So at that point, I thought that because I hadn't come across anybody doing Rainbow Bridge or not, who was past stage 8, I thought that maybe stage 9 and stage 10 were related to the next system. So this is an exciting breakthrough for evolution, where through proper enforcement techniques, meaning I've documented this in Rainbow Bridge and Ray Path people, Rainbow Bridge and Ray Path technique people, that the boundaries of possibility are in a healthy, properly documented way. And I've seen it again and again and again, have started to now, in other words, a breakthrough has happened that I wasn't expecting, and I've been documenting it for over 3 years now. So say stage 10, there are case studies, but only just, meaning I have far more case studies of stage 8. I have some case studies for stage 9, and those that have completed stage 9 are now starting to come into stage 10. So now I am discussing possibilities over what may occur with stage 10, because people are naturally enough asking me that have been aware of these breakthroughs. So stage 10, from hints that I have seen with clairvoyant inner vision, I believe this stage is conditioned by the 7 rays and invokes a continual downpour of rainbow fire from soul star to earth star through the wide central channel. And this is why I got excited about this, because a bit of a mystery for me was cracked. Because in Stevenson's book, and in particular their second book, the late Josephine and Norman Stevens, founders of the Rainbow Bridge techniques, they had a cryptic quote that never made sense to me, meaning the reason why the Rainbow Bridge techniques are called the Rainbow Bridge techniques, it's a coined term, is because when the Antahkarana is completed, and well, put it that way, the Antahkarana is completed, it causes a continual downpour of rainbow fire through the central channel. And I'd never met anybody with a continual downpour of rainbow fire through their central channel. So I had chalked it down to the Stevens seeing things differently to me, because that can happen, but no. So this is why I got excited. The Stevens offer a cryptic description in their first Rainbow Bridge book. They interpret this stage as the manifestation of spirit and matter. The person has become a conscious member of hierarchy. So here's the quote. There is also a vertical linkage symbolized and implemented by the vertical central channel, and the sum total of these individual linkages constitutes the planetary vertical linkage called the Rainbow Bridge, or the planetary Antahkarana. Each incarnated soul has a thread of this bridge, of this spirit energy substance, tiny and invisible except to the highest inner vision. When expanded by meditation and the techniques of clearing, it becomes a permanent channel filled with a continual downpour of a shimmering rainbow-like energy. And it is of immeasurable service to humanity and hierarchy. Rainbow Bridge Phase 1, apologies, not 2. Rainbow Bridge Phase 1, page 82. So, mystery solved. So I finally now, after 12 years now of meticulously documenting Rainbow Bridge and Ray Path students, I'm now seeing what that quote meant. And it is utterly phenomenal. So mystery solved, and an amazing one. So on top of that phenomena, I believe it's also possible that the 5-rayed soul star becomes 6-rayed, as the love wisdom umbilical cord coming out of the middle of the 5-rayed soul star dissolves, leaving a 6th spoke of cosmic love. What I'm talking about there is when the higher self starts to eject back through its path of return. So 5-rayed soul star, but from the heart of the soul star, a thread of love connecting you to the portion of your higher self that's now going back through its path of return, leaving a better conditioned and evolved person with the soul fusion that's happened. So when I first started to document the results of the Rainbow Bridge techniques over 10 years, I believed that at that current point in human evolution, the final 2 stages, 9 and 10, could not be reached. After 9 years of case studies, I had not seen anyone beyond stage 8. However, in the last 10 years, collective evolution has pushed the boundaries of what can be achieved. In 2021 and 2022, I started to document more people reaching stage 8 and starting into stage 9 of building the Rainbow Bridge. This is a milestone and huge win for the collective human family, and it has a big positive knock-on effect for the entire chain of evolution in this indigo triangle system. So, on that powerful note, this will be up on my website soon. I'll put in a link when my web manager has managed to do that for me over the next few days. So just to summarize, I'll just take the screen share off. I dread to think how long this video has been, but I do believe people would appreciate, after watching the full length of it, that there was no way I could have made this any shorter, but I will break it down and make shorter videos. So I will turn this into another mini series covering the other side topics I was talking about. But just to summarize, big breakthroughs in the Rainbow Bridge and Ray Path communities. We're now going beyond the possibilities of what I thought could be reached in collective human evolution. More people coming into stage 8, people solidly going through stage 9, and some starting into stage 10. Big milestone breakthrough for the Ray Path Rainbow Bridge community, but that also does have wider impact on the collective human family. It all connects. So big breakthroughs just in time for 2025 onwards, which is interesting. So on that note, I do hope, as always, that this video has been insightful. I hope it's given some really good food for thought. I hope it's been interesting to watch as well. So as always, if you have any questions, please do email me through my website, www.chloefolden.com. Give me a few days to reply. I always will. Just please give me time. On that note, I do believe that was everything that I wanted to share. As always, 7 ray blessings to all.